Serivanija Jathaka. Once upon a time in the kingdom of Seri, the Bodhisattva was a merchant who dealt in pots and pans and was called the Serivan. Another merchant who was greedy went by the same name and dealt in the same wares. The Bodhisattva came across the river Telavaha and entered the city of Andapura. The two merchants divided the city between them and started hawking their wares around the streets of their agreed districts. In that city, there was a family who had once been rich merchants. But by the time of our story, they had lost all their sons and brothers along with their wealth. The sole survivors were the daughter, a young girl, and her grandmother. They went out daily looking for work and did whatever they could. Unknown to them, there was a plate made out of gold in their house. This plate had belonged to the great merchant, the head of the family, who used it. After his death, it had been thrown in with the other kitchen pots and pans. Since it had not been used for a long time, it was all grimed over with dirt and unrecognizable as the gold plate. One day, the greedy merchant came to this house hawking his ware. "Water pots to sell! Water pots to sell!" Hearing the cry of the merchant, the young girl begged her grandmother, "Oh, do buy me a trinket, grandmother." Since the grandmother did not want to disappoint the girl, she asked the merchant to come in and show his ware. When the girl had selected what she wanted to buy, the grandmother asked her to go into the house and find something in exchange for her trinket. The young girl came back with the plate that was covered in grime and dust. "Here is a plate which is no good to us. Let us exchange that for it." The old woman gave the merchant the plate, saying, "Take this, sir, and be so good as to give this child what she chose in exchange." The hawker took the plate in his hand, turned it over, and had a suspicion that it might be more valuable than the old lady suspected. He wanted to make sure his suspicion was correct. He used a needle to scratch a line on the back of it. When he knew for certain that it was real gold, he wanted to get the plate without giving anything back. He cried, "What's the value of this? Why, it isn't worth half a farthing!" And he threw the plate away and left the house. The agreement between the merchants was that if they wanted to sell in the other's district, they could do so as long as the other had already been to those houses. It happened that the Bodhisattva came into the same street and appeared at the door of the house crying, "Water pots to sell! Water pots to sell!" Once again, the young girl made the same request for her grandmother, and the old woman replied, "My dear, the first hawker threw our plate down and left. What have we got left to offer now?" "Oh, but that hawker was a harsh-spoken man, grandmother. This one looks like a nice man and speaks kindly. He might want to take this plate." "Call him in then." So he came into the house, and they gave him a seat and put the plate on his hands. Seeing that the plate was gold, he said, "Mother, this plate is worth 100,000 pieces. I don't have the change to give you." "Sir, The first hawker who came here said that it was not worth half a farthing, so he threw it to the ground and went away. It must have been the value of your own goodness that has turned the ball into gold. Take it, give us something or other for it, and go your way. At the time, the Bodhisattva had 500 pieces of money and goods worth as much as more. He gave everything to the old lady, saying, "Let me retain my scales, my bag, and 8 pieces of money." They gave him the plate, and he departed as fast as he could to the riverside. He gave his 8 coins to the boatman and jumped into the boat. Subsequently, the greedy hawker had come back to the house and asked them to bring out their plate, saying he would give them something or other for it. The old woman got very upset and said, "You made out that our golden plate, which was worth 100,000 pieces, were not worth even a half farthing. But another hawker came who gave us 1,000 pieces for it and took the plate away." He was shocked. "He has robbed me of a golden plate worth a full 100,000 pieces. He has caused me a terrible loss." He was overcome with sorrow for losing the opportunity to get the plate. He lost command of himself and became distraught. He flung away his money and goods, and he threw off his clothes and armed with the beam of his scales as a club. He dragged the Bodhisattva down to the riverside, finding the Bodhisattva already halfway across. He shouted to the boatman to come back, but the Bodhisattva told him not to do so. As the other stood there gazing at the retreating Bodhisattva, intense sorrow and hatred filled him. His heart grew hot. Blood gushed from his lips. He died with hatred towards the Bodhisattva. After telling the story, the Buddha identified the bird by saying the conclusion, "In those days, Devadatta was the foolish hawker, and I was the wise and good hawker." This is first instance where Devadatta had a grudge against the future Buddha.